Hi, it's Maria from Women into Wellness. In today's video, I want to talk to you about mummy tummy. Yes, your lovable, squidgy little bump that's been with you since you gave birth, that just never really wants to up and leave. So if you want to hear some interesting information about why it's there and what you can do to get rid of it, then please stay tuned. Welcome to my channel. This is where I provide you with the tools, tips and strategies pertaining to movement, nutrition, mindfulness and lifestyle to help you start to feel fantastic and maximize your potential for wellness and well-being. Now, the mummy tummy, as we lovingly call it, let's just start off with me saying, first and foremost, is a wonderful thing. Now, you may disagree with me, but just listen to my point of view. Of course, your mummy tummy is most likely there because at some point you have had a pregnancy and hopefully had a healthy birth and have had a beautiful child as a result of it. So the mummy tummy is not something that we should ever be thinking we are not proud of. But in saying that, I realise that for a lot of us, it's something that once we've come through that initial stage of postnatal recovery, kind of lingers around a little bit longer than we want it to. Almost like that neighbour that comes to visit for the barbecue and then ends up staying 10 o'clock, 11 p.m. in the evening when everyone else has gone and you just don't know how to get rid of them. It's that unwanted guest that we want to just kind of guide and help it on its way and out the door. So in order to understand how we can start to move the mummy tummy away, we need to work out why it's there in the first place. Now, this is going to be likely due to several reasons. The first being that, of course, when you had your baby, you had to have room growing within your abdomen. So, of course, your uterus was getting bigger, all of the ligaments were stretching, and you were filling up with this wonderful amniotic fluid, and, of course, that growing fetus and then baby. So everything within your abdomen began to stretch and distend and get bigger. Now there's two parts to this. The first is that, of course, the muscles that usually would allow us to maintain pressure, maintain strength through our core, these muscles are being stretched and distended during pregnancy, and that's very natural. It's something that's got to happen to make way for the uterus, the amniotic fluid and the baby. So of course that includes all of those muscles. You have the three types of muscles, the rectus abdominis down the middle, and that's the traditional known as six-pack. You have the transverse abdominis that wrap around like a corset, and then the obliques, which sit like sliding fingers down the sides and innervate those sides of the body there around the waist. Now, what happens is mainly we're going to talk, all of them stretch, but we're going to talk mainly about the rectus abdominis, is that if you think it sits knitted together like this, as it stretches and gets bigger, it starts to spread apart. Now, what this happens, it means is that the muscles sit further apart, and the line down the middle, a linea alba, I'm going to pop a photo in for you, also starts to stretch and distend. Now, this is made out of connective tissue, and what happens then is that we give birth, everything, as you probably noticed, following birth stays quite big and distended and then starts to shrink back down. Quite naturally, in most cases, it will shrink down to a reasonable size. Things start to re-knit back together. Now, what often happens is that things don't knit back together quite as closely or as tightly as we were thinking they would do, or we would hope that they would do, in order for us to have that strength and integrity through the front of the abdominal wall. So you end up with the muscles not really knitting quite well, the connective tissue, the linea alba, which is the white band down the middle, being quite wide and distended. And what this means is that the integrity, the structural integrity, or in fact just the strength of that front abdominal wall is no longer there. It's not as strong as it was. And what this means is that in a general relaxed state, or even when you are under exertion, so whether you're just moving, sitting up, running, picking up your baby, or carrying something like you're shopping, or something like a car seat, it means that there's a lot of pressure being forced out through this front of your abdominal wall, because we manage pressure through the barrel of our internalized core muscles. And this starts to press out against that wall. Now, because it's so distended and it's not as tight and connected as it was, it doesn't actually push back in and hold that pressure back in again. It just goes and it stays out there. So this means that all of your organs kind of just are able to flop forward. Any pressure, any breathing that you have, so if you have a breathing pattern that's not optimal and you are breathing into the belly a lot, that's going to be pushing out through that wall. So it means that you just naturally have this distension through the mid-wall. Now this makes the belly look rounded when you look at it from the side, because instead of those muscles being tighter as they were pre-first baby, then they are now just lax and they are loose and they are hanging out there, okay? So they are really chilled. Now I said there was two parts to this. The second part to this was also that the connective tissues surrounding those muscles, not only the linea alba in the front, but all of the tissues as well, the fascia, the skin, the layers of skin and the fat all around it, that's all in this connected mass of soft tissue, is also in a more relaxed state. Because if you think about the stretching of the muscles and the linea alba underneath, you're also going to have stretching of skin. So if you had this lovely big baby bump, this is why we know that a lot of us will have stretch marks. The skin, the collagen within the skin just cannot keep up with the amount of stretch and the growth that is occurring. And there is really not much of a way to get rid of stretch marks afterwards. There are one or two techniques that can be used, but stretch marks are going to mean that that skin is loose. Now I'm going to use an analogy for this one, and it's kind of like thinking about that pair of awesome leggings that you bought that weren't quite top of the range. Now when you first bought them, they looked great. They fit you, they were nice and tight in all the right places. However, they were fairly cheap, and once you did your first one or two workouts, they sagged and they bagged. They are loosey-goosey and they are not doing the job that they're supposed to, even after you put them through the wash, right? So what happens with the skin is that when we've got stretch marks, it's been distended, it's stretched, it's never quite able to re-find that sort of tensile elasticity and to be as tight and as taut as it was. So you've got these muscles that are loose, that are hanging out there, that are getting blown out every time you do a movement involving pressure if you don't quite know how to manage your pressure. You've got this loose skin that is also hanging out there and it's not able to pull everything back in. Think about it this way as well. It's like having those control pants, right? When you've got something tight there, it can help hold everything in. Well, we've lost that now because the skin is also stretched as well. So everything underneath that's loose is just, as I said, okay, for want of a better, more technical phrase. And then also, if we think about the extra add-on is, let's not forget, fat. So it's this abdominal fat, it's this adipose fatty tissue that the body really doesn't need in vast quantities, that has been laid around the midriff. Now often this may have been laid there through pregnancy because as a biological and physiological imperative, we are trying to maintain resources to nourish the pregnancy. They would also have definitely been maintained there if you were breastfeeding, because even more so, well not necessarily more so, but equally so, your body is being primed to create a resource, a nourishment resource for the baby. So it lays down fatty stores around the abdomen. So this means that you've then got fat adding into the mix, and this often becomes that stubborn fat that we find hard to lose, but it also is made to look perhaps a lot worse because underneath the fat you have the relaxed muscles, and then on the outside of the fat, you have the overstretched skin. So everything is just hanging out there. You've got like this 3 layers of your whole abdominal. It's just having a party there, right there. It's just chilling, okay? And this is what causes the mummy tummy. Now, the good news is that there are ways that we can tackle mummy tummy. And as I said, it's there for a reason, for a very good reason. So it's nothing at all to be ashamed of. But if we're not able to tackle this issue with the diastasis recti and at least build strength back through the connection so that it can manage internalized pressure, then what happens is instead of pressure going out through the front abdominal wall, where else does it go? It goes down through the pelvic floor. And this is where you start to experience problems that can make things like urinary or fecal incontinence worse, put you at higher risk of developing things like pelvic organ prolapse. So that's a really good reason to start working on healing that diastasis recti and trying to re-knit it back together, perhaps, yes, but more importantly to create tensile strength where it can manage tension through that front wall. That is a good reason, okay, I've given you right there. Now let's also think about the rest of it. So we're talking about the fat. Now, when we have fat in the area of the body, around the abdomen that we were talking about, if it's there because you are growing a baby or you are breastfeeding, it's doing its job. It's there for a reason. However, if you are beyond that stage in your postnatal journey, or a mother well down the line, and you've still got a lot of fat around your midriff, it can increase your risk of developing certain diseases. These are cardiovascular diseases relating to poor health with your heart, metabolic diseases, higher risk of developing things like diabetes. So we want to start to reduce the fat around that waist, and we can often measure this by doing a hip to waist ratio, but you really want to make sure that your waist is narrower than your hips. That's the quickest way of describing it, to look at sort of healthy markers for waist to hip ratio and reducing fat around the midriff to help reduce your likelihood of developing certain metabolic or cardiovascular related diseases. So I've given you the two sort of medically or physiologically based reasons as to why we want to tackle a mummy tummy. Let me just add on for you the one that we all probably came here for, which is the aesthetics, right? We want to look better. We want to start feeling like we've re-owned and regained our body. Perhaps we want to fit into the clothes that we had before. We love that pair of jeans, or we don't have the money in the budget for a whole new wardrobe. Or perhaps it just gives us back that level of self-confidence to feel like our body is a little bit fitter, and it has that ability to have core strength, strong core strength, without having sort of this excess fat on top of it as well. So whatever the reasons are, for many of us it might be a combination of all three, it's a really good reason to start thinking about why you have your mummy tummy and what you can do to heal it. Now, if you need help healing your mummy tummy, then I have a program for you. In fact, I have two. There's different ways you could work with me. I have one-to-one online women's wellness coaching. Now, this is specifically postnatal wellness coaching and personal training combined together as a package. And it's a fantastic way for you to come and work with me. As I said, we can do this online to establish and identify any of your postnatal sort of priorities or priorities as a mum that you really need to tackle to boost your sense of wellness and well-being. And we create for you a beautiful plan, a whole holistic plan. So like I said, a lot of the things that you see me talking about and my whole ethos is that when you start to combine all the different aspects of wellness, that's when you really get results. If you take one thing in isolation, you don't get the results that you're after, or you don't maximize your results. So you can pick out an exercise video here, or you can perhaps do something that you found over there about nutrition. But when you combine it all together with techniques involving mindfulness, looking at your nutrition, your movement, as well as your own sense of self-awareness, there's so much more added to it. We've got stress, we've got sleep, we're just going to throw it all in there. But you can work with me in that way. And if you feel like you want to go it alone, you have the motivation to do it yourself, which is fantastic if you do. This is often the way I do a lot of things, is you can also purchase my Mama Loves Wellness online course. This is an amazing course that provides for you 10 modules that cover all of these different aspects, the pillars of wellness that are part of my signature design when I'm creating holistic wellness programs that really get results. I'm going to pop it down there for below. It's a beautiful resource. It's got so many wellness resources in there for you, all neatly packaged up within videos that are easy to watch, a beautiful workbook that takes you through a journey. It's got some great little activities in there for you to do, as well as guided meditations, recipes, and a fully phased workout program. So I do not leave you hanging. You've got everything in there that you need to take you through your own postnatal wellness journey. As I said, I will pop it in the link for you below. But I hope you found in this video some interesting and helpful information about why you have a mummy tummy and what you might need to be thinking about in order to heal yourself of this mummy tummy. Thank it for being there. Thank it for the reasons it was there. But hopefully just wish it on its way and say bye-bye. Now, if you liked the video today, please go ahead, give me a thumbs up, share the video. More mums need to know this information, more women need to know this information, and it's not just for you in the early stages of postnatal recovery. There are mums out there who are dealing with this issue 5 years, 10 years, 20 years after they've had a baby, and they still have things like diastasis recti, and they still have that perpetual mummy tummy. There is help out there for you. So I thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And until next time, I wish you well.